Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins with a diver at the bottom of the ocean swimming into the mouth of a giant tunnel. The walls are adorned with intricate engravings and golden treasures where inside it he discovers a beautiful mermaid named Uxía. She's kind at first but then suddenly produces razor-sharp teeth when Paul wakes up having just been experiencing one of his recurring nightmares. He's currently off the shore of Spain with his girlfriend Barbara as they explore the country that his family supposedly came from. He's a wealthy stockbroker and is only here at the suggestion of Barbara, who does everything she can to keep him from working, including throwing his computer into the ocean. The boat belongs to their middle-aged friends Vicki and Howard, who have to put up with him arguing about how Paul gets really nervous around the ocean. They're passing the small fishing village of Mbaca when a storm kicks up and begins to rapidly approach as they try to reach land. Despite the captain's best efforts, it smashes the boat against the rocks, trapping Vicki beneath some rubble with a broken leg. Unable to move her, Howard remains behind with Vicki while Paul and Barbara take a life raft ashore to get help. After a few minutes of her blood seeping into the water, it fills with a black substance as the two get attacked by a sea creature that kills Howard off-screen. Meanwhile, the pair on the tender get to Mbaca's decaying dock to find it eerily quiet and no signs of life anywhere in the rundown town. They continue searching until coming across a converted church that's now adorned with the symbol from Paul's dream. The doors swing open by themselves, but the pair have barely any time to look at the strange artifacts before a priest approaches. He doesn't speak any English, so Barbara translates that they wish to rent a fishing boat to travel out and rescue their friends. She volunteers to join the rescue while Paul remains on land since he's terrified of water, but he's trying to act brave around his girlfriend, so when he puts his hand on a fishing hook he just plays it off like he didn't. Only when Paul leaves does Barbara realize that the priest has webbed fingers as he directs her to the local hotel where she can call for help. The streets are now being roamed with strange villagers limping around and whimpering like the result of a zombie apocalypse. Once Barb gets to the hotel, the creepy receptionist just remains silent, until she grabs the phone when he reaches out at her with his elongated fingers. The priest turns against her as well, and the pair of fishmen take her hostage as we jump to Paul coming up on the boat. He boards it but doesn't find any signs of Howard or Vicki on the boat and must return to shore empty-handed. He learns that there's no police in town as the priest directs him to the hotel, saying that Barb has a room for them for the night. The receptionist remains silent and hides his hands, but when Paul accepts his room key he notices gills on the side of the man's neck. He heads upstairs only to find that everything in the hotel room's waterlogged and unclean, but regardless he sits down and waits for Barbara. After a few minutes he thinks she's returned, but it's just the lady from his dreams who attacks him as Paul's fallen asleep again. He looks outside the window to see dozens of the strange villagers crowding around in the rain, who when they notice Paul watching them they charge the hotel room. He runs to the door and locks it, but they manage to break it down. So Paul leaps out the bathroom window, falling through a glass roof into a tanner's workshop. He pulls himself up and looks outside to see a diverted traveler being ripped from his car and attacked by the villagers. They then enter the workshop searching for Paul when he looks around and notices that what they've been tanning is human skin. The pale beings locate Paul, but he sets the leather on fire, causing them to desperately rush to put out the flames, allowing Paul to escape by pretending to be a villager carrying out a rack of leather. He flees down an alleyway and comes across an old drunk man who he takes as a hostage with his pocket knife. Ezequiel reveals that he's the only real human in the whole village, as the rest were corrupted by one of the old gods. When he was just a young boy, the village ran out of fish, so the Christians prayed to God to save them, but no one answered. One day a fisherman told them that they should give up and find a new god to worship who will actually answer their prayers, but the majority cast him out for blasphemy. A handful of loyalists followed him to the sea, where they watched him summon the demon lord of the abyss called Dagon. It showered the villagers with fresh fish and washed up treasures, so they overthrew the church and overhauled it into a temple to their new god. The fisherman became the leader of the cult, and when their god demanded sacrifice, it was Ezekiel's parents that they chose first. The males were turned into leather to be made into ritual masks, while the women were given to Dagon to mate with, and created the amphibious humanoid race called the Deep Ones that'll eventually return to the sea. The only reason they didn't kill the old man was because they considered him harmless and of no threat to their father Dagon. Paul gets him to take him to the only car in town, which happens to belong to the mayor and descendant of the cult's original leader. He's been bred with Dagon so much that he's capable of living underwater already, but still remains at the village until the rest of the Deep Ones can do the same. Paul thinks that Ezequiel betrays him to the villagers at first, but realizes he's just using a stall tactic, allowing him to hotwire the car. He accidentally sparks the horn instead, getting him chased by the villagers into the mayor's manor, where he locks himself inside a bedroom with a woman from his dreams. Uxía's the mayor's daughter and protects Paul from her father by saying that she just had a nightmare to keep the visitors' intrusion a secret. She recognizes Paul from her own dreams and he wants to resist her attractiveness, but still leans in and gives her a kiss, until he freaks out at the realization that her lower extremities are that of a squid. She begs him to stay with her, but Paul runs away and is almost caught by the mayor's driver, but he headbutts him down the stairs, then takes the keys. Uxía then shouts from her balcony not to leave her, but the rest of the Deep Ones terrify Paul into fleeing from the property. On the road out of town, desperate villagers crowd the car, causing it to get jammed up on a pile of bodies, so Paul hops out to clear the wheel arch, but one of them's still alive. An arm holds him as the rest slowly approach, but he uses the loose hubcap to fight it off and escapes back towards town. He comes across a small house that's flooded and takes shelter inside, but a young boy alerts his father to the intruder. Unlike his son, he's nearly unrecognizable as a humanoid, but for all his weapons, the Deep One attempts to drown Paul in the toilet. On the verge of death, he manages to take the ceramic lid and bludgeon the man to death, leaving the child to mourn as Paul runs away. He finally gets caught in a net by the cult and wakes up in a barn with Barbara and Ezequiel both held prisoner. Vicky's also there, but she's babbling incoherently as she's been impregnated by Dagon and bears a baby Deep One. When the butchers arrive with the priest to take the men away for skinning, Paul attempts to fight them off alongside the brave old man. They disarm one of their attackers but are all recaptured except for Vicki, who picks up a dropped knife and holds it to her stomach. Rather die than give birth to the amphibious child, she plunges it into her stomach, killing herself as the men are taken away to become leather and Barbara to her date. Paul and Ezequiel are chained up and given one last chance to repent and join in worship of the demon lord Dagon, but both refuse. The priest rejects Paul's offer of money as the seas have made them richer than imaginable, so the old man thanks Paul for reminding him of his parents before he dies. The priest skins him alive in a very graphic scene which leaves Ezequiel dead and Paul undoubtedly scarred for life. When the skinner approaches him to do the same, the wheelchair-bound Uxía enters to save his life as she intends to make him her personal mate. She says that it's his destiny to live as a half-fish half-man thing in the joy of Dagon, where their children will become immortal. She feels hurt that Paul doesn't feel the same for her, and when she leaves him to be taken down by the priest, Paul escapes, killing both of the butchers in the process. With the priest now all alone, Paul swats away his knife and avenges Ezequiel by gutting the holy man like the fish man that he is. He then takes a tin of kerosene and heads to the church, correctly assuming that the villagers intend to sacrifice Barbara. The high priestess is shown to be Uxía, who toys with her victim before the skin mask-adorned cult suspends her over an open pit. Dressed in her ceremonial garbs and carried on a throne, the leader uses the artifact that her great-grandfather possessed to call forth Dagon to claim the sacrifice. Meanwhile, Paul discovers the hidden passage that descends beneath the church and finds the Deep Ones chanting their prayers to Cthulhu. They start to lower Barb towards the water at the bottom under their jealous leader's orders, so Paul begins to toss gas on them and lights them on fire. The skin suits go up in flames, and in the chaos, Barbara plummets into the murky water for just a few seconds before Paul reaches the winch to pull her up. Now covered in a thick black substance, Barbara pleads with him to kill her as she's already been impregnated by the quick shooter Dagon. Just then he bursts out of the water and rips his mate from the chains, killing Barbara and leaving only her arms dangling. The Deep Ones subdue Paul when Uxía crawls forward and protects him once again despite his aversion to even look at her. The mayor steps forward to scorn his daughter for not killing him yet, but she reveals that Paul's got gills that just haven't fully developed. She says the reason that Paul experiences the dreams is because he's one of the Deep Ones who was taken from the town as a baby. When the mayor was young and handsome, he brought women to the town for sacrifice and laid with Paul's mother, but she fled when she got pregnant. He's the son of the mayor and brother of Uxía, who intends to make him her lover, but Paul refuses to have anything to do with Dagon and calls them all crazy. Just completely over everything, he showers himself in the kerosene and sets himself on fire, but the distraught priestess slithers over and tackles him into the pit of water. Alive but badly burned, the gills on Paul's body open up once needed and the fish man's able to breathe underwater with Uxía. Realizing that he's one of the Dagon babies, Paul follows the priestess as they swim deeper into the tunnel from his dreams. A Lovecraft quote appears saying that they'll live for eternity, while the film's dedicated to the actor who played the brave old man. And the movie ends.